good to see everybody. So I'm speaking today on forgiveness and inner freedom. And I'm going to share with you what I found, what works for me. It has helped thousands of people, and I've tested it over and over. So hopefully there will be something of benefit for you. But of course, take what works for you, what makes sense, and leave the rest. I want to thank my teachers, firstly Yeshua and the teachings of A Course in Miracles. And also a man named Colin Tipping, who you may have heard of. He wrote many books, but one called Radical Forgiveness, and he was the person who showed me that focusing on this topic and letting go and receiving the goodness that waits for us when we let go can be part of anyone's spiritual path, and so I've gotten very passionate about it. I also thank the land that we're on and the whole earth and the keepers of the earth. So I call the model of forgiveness that I'm going to share with you today ecstatic or expanded forgiveness. And it's not the traditional model that we learned probably when we were growing up as kids. So when I tune into it, I find that there are two ways that we normally learn about forgiveness when we're children. One is when we're old enough to start playing with other kids instead of parallel play. We start to interact as little ones. And of course, inevitably, some kid, pulls the other kid's hair or grabs their lunchbox or whatever. And then the adults come in and try to teach the kids how to say they're sorry. Say you're sorry. Now, as a mother, I have done this a lot. And it's a process to teach a child, oh, what does that even mean, say you're sorry? Now, what we often don't think about is, what about the other kid? The kid who did the supposed wrongdoing has to learn to say they're sorry. What about the other child? The other child is supposed to say what? Oh, it's okay. Right. And often it is okay, and children are really resilient, and so they get back to the playground. But that may be all that you learned about forgiveness, unless perhaps you went to church and there was some religious teachings about forgiveness, but often those teachings might have been interwoven with a lot of dogma that was contracting and maybe didn't fit quite. And so those are usually the two ways that we would learn about forgiveness. Sometimes there's no other guidance that we receive, so there's no map. Now, sometimes we have spontaneous healings, and there can be forgiveness within that spontaneous healing, but that's spontaneous, and so we never know if and when it's going to happen. And so when I learned from my teacher, Colin Tipping, that we can actually, what he calls a technology, there's a way that we can learn how to unwind our suffering and trauma by doing this releasing process. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. The releasing may be needed because of some childhood trauma, some family issues of dysfunction, could be ancestral trauma or pain that our grandparents and even further back have experienced that we're holding still. It could be a lot of things. And once you get into this, you realize, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. Possibilities to forgive our culture, our society, our gender conditioning. There are so many ways, and even forgiving war, forgiving our enemies if we can do that. So forgiveness in this way, expanded forgiveness, is for our inner freedom. And it involves a willingness to walk off the battlefield. So I say that quite often. What is it going to take for me and sharing with others to walk off this tension? We live on a planet of duality. And so there's up and down, there's left and right, there's me and you and you and you. And there's also, what do I like? What do I want? What do I don't like? And those things are necessary and they're here, but they also create a tension because we're not then also tuned into the oneness that is beyond the duality. I think that's what we're doing here today in our prayers and meditations. So we need to let go of our fears and resentments, guilt and shame, because those are the emotions that get in the way of our freedom. They're completely understandable, and we can have compassion for them inside of ourselves and other people, but they're not irrefutable or immovable. In other words, we're not victims of our situation, at least in our own mind. So we can release and let go, and I'll share with you how. And we have a choice of what we want to keep and what we want to let go of. And we can do this inner process whenever we feel ready, and not a moment before will we do it. When we're ready, then we'll do it. People sometimes say to me, oh, but forgiveness is so hard. And I say to you, no, it's not. It's not hard. What's hard is holding on to the resistance. That's what's hard. Refusing forgiveness is actually the hard part because we spend our time defending ourselves, refuting arguments, looping and perseverating in our heads. At least I know what that feels like. Hopefully, maybe somebody else here does too. And in our heads, we're going, but I didn't do it. Or everyone else is mean and nasty. Or no one understands me. And furthermore, and whenever I notice my inner dialogue is going on for a while and my ego, because that's who's chatting away, says, and furthermore, I know, like, oh, it says, and furthermore, like I'm in the court and I'm offering my case to the judge. Whoever the judge is, I don't know who the judge is. But anyway, if I catch myself, and furthermore, I laugh. Or I realize, okay, time to do some forgiveness. So I commit to the steps that I'm going to share with you briefly today. So forgiveness is not hard. Resistance over time is really difficult, and it can make us sick. People also say to me, oh, well, if I forgive, then I'll be weak. I'll be a doormat. And that's scary because without my defenses, I'll be vulnerable to all the mean people and the forces out there. As if there is an out there, but it seems like there is. And we can have compassion for this perspective of a child who has no other options but to hide or to rebel, who feels alone and uncared for. So with an ocean of this compassion for this place within ourselves, we can begin to trust that letting go of our familiar defenses and replacing them with the strength of our life force doesn't make us weak. It makes us stronger. What's stronger than the force of life itself? Not only do we become stronger within, we become more peaceful, more awake, more alert, more aware, and we can listen inside, and then we can know what to do from an entirely different place, a different reality, and that is inner freedom. Certain spiritual people also tell me, well, Ana, there's nothing to forgive. And when you teach people to forgive, you're just telling them that there's something wrong and there isn't anything wrong and there's nothing to forgive. Well, okay. Actually, on a spiritual level, there is nothing to forgive. And that's when we're all in our most inherent beauty. That's true. Forgiveness is for us, for human beings here on this duality planet. That's when we need the forgiveness. And if we skip over it, we're just pretending that we've gotten somewhere when actually deep in our gut, we haven't let go yet. As I see it, we come from the mystery. We have a life and a body and a name, and we develop a personality and preferences. We have gifts, and all of this is temporary. And then we go back to the mystery. So what's the point? Why are we here? Well, for me, one of the points is to love and be loved, to share our gifts because it's joyful to do so, and also to learn to heal and let go of anything we don't want to keep. We all have themes or patterns of thoughts and behaviors that are either helpful or not so helpful for our freedom. So getting more aligned and comfortable with our gifts and feeling joy and soul satisfaction with our lives, we need forgiveness. We need to learn to let go, to make room for more life force, and receive intuitive wisdom. Okay, so what do we need in order to do that? How can we forgive and be free? Well, for me, I've noticed that we need 4 things. First off, we need trust. Trust, trust, trust. Because we're going to be letting go, and we're being asked in this process of expanded forgiveness to let go and trust something that is not physical. It's everywhere within us, and it is the forces, the good forces of life. So we need to trust in something that's bigger than who we are as individuals, that's kind. You can call it whatever you like. You can call it God or pure awareness. You can call it Great Spirit or nature or the feeling of wonder and awe. But we just have to trust that this presence exists. And as my teacher, Colin Tipping, used to say, fake it till you make it. And I have often thought of that. When I see the beauty of nature, that really helps me to trust that there's something that's here to help. And that's when I can get larger or trust in something larger than my personality with its fears and its foibles. So to this essence of life, that's where I come in prayer. Also, in addition to trust, we need honesty, openness, and willingness. Honesty, to really check in. What is actually going on? Openness, to learn something new. And willingness to allow some change. If we have these 4 things, which everyone can summon within themselves if they so choose, then we can let go, lay down our burdens, and shed our sorrows in order to come into the new moment of now. All healing happens now. So people sometimes say, but I don't have time. I'll do it later. And that's fine. But it is a choice to delay your freedom. It's not because you don't have time. Truly, we can forgive in a moment or in a few minutes. Forgiveness lives outside of time. Once we've made our offerings of our pain and released them to the one who gives us life, the process takes us directly into an experience of mystery. It's mystical, which I love, because it's a direct experience of our true nature, now that our pain isn't in the way. So normally, without this kind of forgiveness, we're taught to recycle our pain over and over again. This is what our families did for generations. The older folks didn't know how to handle their grief and their fear, so they say, here, kids, you take it. And so as children, we absorbed that part of the soup of our family with all its ingredients. And normally the parents show the kids two ways of handling this problem. We feel anger and bewilderment and resentment and we don't know what to do with it. So here, this is two options. You can either suck it in and push it down where it'll pop back up over and over, or you can spray it out on everyone else because it's their fault and not mine. And those are usually the two options that we get in our family. And we can become very confused. Like, what's going on? We're on a battlefield, and we feel the tension and the strain, and we don't know why. Expanded forgiveness gives us a third option, to lay down our burdens as an offering to the altar of life, which is forever in each of our spiritual heart. This altar can be anything that's sacred and real and good to you. It can be an altar like we have in church, or an ocean of love, or a sacred fire, or a grandmother tree. Now we know where to put our fear and our sorrow when we want to let go of it. And we can offer them to the oneness for healing in this sacred space. And we do this, we find that our pain disappears and only awareness and peace remain. That's because this awareness is what's real. And the fears that we've been recycling around for years or decades or since this morning are real, but not in the ultimate sense. They seem real in the world of duality, for sure. But truly, life and its beauty are real. Everything else comes and goes. Our suffering comes and it can go. It doesn't have true substance. And when we know this, we can receive the lessons that are waiting, involved in whatever happened. You and I can say, if we want to, thank you. Thank you, life, for this experience, because it helped me learn. It helped me with my soul themes, and now I can be free. So briefly, here are the steps of the forgiveness process that I offer. It's very simple. There are 4 steps. The first one is prayer. We set a sacred space. We remember whatever that altar is that we would like to use, so we get the support, and we come in humbleness and we ask for help. That's the first step. The second step is to be really honest with what's going on. So if we're feeling tension, we're not feeling at peace, we have to go into our bodies and into our emotions and into our mind to see what's chattering there and just get really honest with what is happening. That's the second step. Learn everything we can. And then when we're ready, we make the offering. And I'm not going to lead you through this now because it brings up a lot of emotion and memories, and I just don't have time to take a big group like this through such a tender place. But if you're interested in experiencing it, just let me know and we can talk about it. But right now you can imagine doing it, saying your prayer, being really honest, checking with your body, feeling your emotions, noticing your mind loop about whatever it might be. And then let it go. Make your offering to the Holy One that gives you life. And you'll feel it. You'll feel it moving out of your blood and out of your bones. So at this point, you can decide not only what you wanted to let go of, but what do you want to keep? What do we want to hold to, hold on to, stand for? Some examples of what you might want to hold on to are compassion, mercy, integrity, generosity, gentleness. My personal favorite, patience. love. So then we close with another prayer, and that prayer usually has lots of ingredients and flavors of gratitude. And we do this not only for our own personal self. People sometimes say, well, forgiveness is for you, it's not for the other person. And I would say, to me, no. Forgiveness is for ourselves, for sure, but it ripples out. It's for everyone. It's for the entire earth, for all beings. And when we stand for that, then the compassion and the generosity and the patience and the love, that goes not only to ourselves, but to everyone involved. So you can imagine this as a prayer sandwich or a forgiveness sandwich. And I sometimes think of it as a PB&J, like a, peanut butter and jelly. And so the bread on both sides, those are the prayers. The peanut butter is the sticky stuff, whatever got stuck. There's nothing wrong with peanut butter. It's just sticky. And so we can learn how to release that. And then the jam is the sweetness. The jam is the sweetness of saying, yes, I want healing. Yes, I receive healing. And yes, now I have access to my intuitive wisdom. And we don't just do this once and figure, oh yeah, that's good, did it. This is a lifelong art form, and it's very humbling how many layers there actually are, both individually and for our families, for our world. Many, many layers, so we can use this over time. And each time, as we practice, we'll feel freer and more connected, more creative, more conscious of making choices that are life-enhancing and kind. So I would like to leave you with a poem. This is a book of poetry that I wrote. It's called The Edges Are Friendly. And this poem that I want to share with you to end today is called Houses of Light. And I want to recognize that there's also sacred darkness that I really deeply, deeply love. And this poem focuses on the light that comes from that sacred darkness. It's called Houses of Light. We are houses of light. Lighthouses shining, streaming iridescent beams of the Holy One. We are blessing portals, indescribable by way of words, yet real in our potency. Fired up and spreading out, fulfilled and spilling over, we are fountains of grace. Born right here, moment by moment, born right here, moment by moment. Our purpose, to enliven the world. Thank you.